Where's that darn Cardi Jew? They're making us rabbinites look horrible.
Shalom, shalom, blessed be the name of God. Blessed be He for honoring me once again, for joining me at my man cave and my synagogue, away from my synagogue. No place like home, right? Yes, your favorite host here, once again, Rev Yahar ben-Emmett. Yes, the community rabbi appointed by 80 righteous Orthodox souls in Uganda for Bethesda Synagogue. I want to just thank you again for joining us. Yeah, another exciting edition in the Torah Watchman show. We're going to journey again with another regular weekly Parshah study and analysis. We will be exploring the Torah teachings of the 5 books of Moshe once again. We will be also embellishing it with Talmudic and Midrashic studies from the stages of blessed memory. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you have some popcorn. I hope you invited some friends and family. Anyway, God bless you. Let's get started. Our time is short and sweet. All I want to do is bless you the way God has blessed me. It's Parashas Vayeitzei. Vayeitzei means, and he left, simply in Hebrew, and he left. Who are we talking about leaving? We're talking about Yaakov. Yeah, Yaakov. Remember the story from last time? Yaakov was running for his life. He angered his little bit older brother Esau, and his mother Rebecca said, "You need to get out of town." Well, this is where we pick it up this time, and we began this Torah Parsha reading and beginning in chapters 28 here, chapter 28:10, chapter 33, verse 3, again, along Parshah, and here we go. Ready? Get started and go. I had to put on my glasses here because I have to read detail here. Yes, yeah. I have to wear these glasses because I am farsighted at the probably age of 54. So beginning, Yaakov departed Beersheba. Beersheba, as you know, it's a little bit, I would say, northwest of Jerusalem. It's kind of the southern area north of Gaza. So Beersheba, that's where they were had their tents, had their camps, Yitzhak and Rebecca. So actually, remember the last story, Rebecca had an idea that it's time. She found that Esau had got married couple times, a couple wives there, Canaanite women. I don't want you to marry any Canaanite women here. Get out of Dodge. So I want you to go to the land of my forefathers in Haran, which is actually in Aram, which actually is Syria, if you think about it, is up there in that area. That's where Laban and the others and the relatives of Abraham and Isaac were dwelling. So Yaakov departed Beersheba and went to Haran. Now, how long that trip took? Probably took at least 2 weeks to get there. I'm not sure. This is by foot or camel, or donkey, or whatever, giving a weather environment. He was traveling to Canaan. This is not Eretz Israel. There were Canaanite villages and communities there. There were warring tribes everywhere. Shepherds were fighting each other, killing each other just for a water hole. So that was the kind of situation he was in. Beersheba was a place of stones and pillars where they had commissioned before God, holy sacrifices, battles that were fought, and things of that nature. And it was very important to Abraham's blessed memory. So on the way to Haran, Yaakov encountered a place and spent the night there. It doesn't say exactly where this place is, but let me move up a few more verses. This place is known as Beth-El. You may have heard of Beth-El. Literally means house of God, Elohim, God. So this place was close to a Canaanite city of Luz. To this day, archaeologists are not quite sure where that place was. They have a pretty good idea. And where it is now is right in the middle of Samaria on the West Bank. And there is a Hasidic or ultra-Orthodox community that's living in part of that area and is surrounded by Arabs today. They control most of that real estate, unfortunately. But anyway, Yaakov found a place to rest his head. He was traveling all day long and became tired, and the sun was getting low in the sky. And he took a group of miscellaneous stones or rocks or whatever. You know how you need to arch up your neck here, you know, the way you lay on the, if you lay on the ground, you get a backache very quick. So he put a group of probably small stones or whatever underneath his neck to lay down and go to sleep and cover himself up. But he had a dream, he had a vision, and the sages like to think that in his vision quest, that actually Yaakov was transported to Moriah, which is Temple Mount, which King Solomon's temple was built, because there was a holy thing that was going on in this place. He had a dream. You heard about Yaakov's ladder. There's movies made about this or whatever. Yaakov's ladder, he beheld angels, get this, going up the rungs of the ladder and coming down at the same time. So it was a large enough ladder for angels to ascend and angels to descend. Now you can really have your imagination go wild there and understand the mystical, Kabbalistic aspects of why there were angels going up and going down. If an angel was ascending, that means they were on earthbound doing a specific mission for Hashem. If they were coming down, they were assigned for doing things for Hashem again. Probably watching over Yaakov, because it says here in the Torah Parshah, and I'll be reading this soon, that there were angels encamped around Yaakov, protecting him against his enemies, protecting him against Esau specifically, and the other Canaanite chieftains and tribal groups and communities of people that was on his path. So this place he dwelt and beheld Hashem speaking to him. And I want to read this because it's pretty special. Verse 13 here, we read in chapter 28, Beersheba, Genesis, and behold, Hashem was standing over him. Now, I don't know if he beheld the essence of Hashem. You cannot see the face of God and live, of course. But he knew that a presence was with him, a supernatural presence, and it said clearly Hashem, which means the name, the God of his ancestors, was standing before him. And he was saying, I am Hashem. I am God of Abraham, your father, and God of Yitzhak. The ground upon which you are lying, to you I will give it, and to your descendants, okay? Eretz Israel, and your offspring shall be as dust of the earth, and you shall spread out powerfully westward, militarily, westward, eastward, northward, and southward, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and by your offspring. This is an implementation of Yitzhak's blessing that he gave Yaakov. Behold, I am with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will return you to this soil. You know, for I will not forsake you until I will have done what I have spoken about you. Okay. So here, that's a promise that was made by Hashem before his holy angels as witnesses that God had pre-selected Yaakov, and incidentally, the last of the patriarchs, to be able to implement all the promises that was first given to Abraham. So if this blessing seems, if you have deja vu and you remember this blessing spoken before, it's because God blessing and elevation passed from grandfather to father to son. So Jacob wakes up from this magnificent dream, and he was really touched. And Yaakov saw his sheep, and it was the morning breaking, and he said, "Surely Hashem is present in this holy place, and I will name it Bethel, and it's close to the Canaanite city of Luz." We mentioned this before. And if God will be with me, will guard me on this way, I am going, and will give me bread to eat and clothes to wear. In other words, minimal sustenance. Okay, a man needs essentially bread and water to survive, right? And clothes to protect you against the elements. So he's not asking for gold and silver and riches. He's asking if this is truly God, and this is his first personal connection to Hashem, his first supernatural connection to Hashem, that he had at this time. So it really was impacting him. He was probably in his 40s or so, I would say, same age as Esau. And he said, if Hashem is with me, I will definitely follow. These signs are quantifiable. I've measured this. I believe this. It was a lucid dream. So it really impacted him. I want to add something very interesting I've read in the sages here in the Talmud, Midrash. Eber and Shem. I mentioned before that Yaakov was scholarly. He was in the tents. He was a student of the Torah. The Torah at that time was spoken orally. It was not written down like in the Ten Commandments yet. Something that was passed down from grandfather to father to son. The Noahide laws. Remember those? We talked about that. Ramban mentioned 7 of them. Well, these things were passed down to father and son. All the tradition, all these stories on how God has delivered Abraham, the miracle battles with the Canaanites and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, all these things were passed down. And what the sages added, that during Yaakov's growing and formative stages, that he spent time in the synagogue of Eber and Shem. Who are these people, Eber and Shem? Well, Eber was the son of Shem. As you know, these were the sons of Noah. Wow, that's a long time ago, but these people lived very long. I think Shem lived 600 years. Eber lived 450-something years. So it is feasible and possible that if Yaakov took a special interest in God, that at least Rebecca probably had him go to Salem and meet Melchizedek, which is, by legend, it was Shem, and met with them, these sages, who were considered godly people, by the way. The Shem was where the Israelites descended from. So, moving forward, I don't get too much off target here because we have a lot of reading to do, blessed reading. So here we are that Yaakov continued his trip after he woke up from that supernatural dream, and then he came to Haran. And when the first thing you see when you come into a city like this, in the town square per se, this usually is a large well. That's where people literally sat and talked and had discussion and gossip about all their life and all their egos and their stories and everything else, but this water hole, this well here, had a big stone across it, and he saw people, shepherds, gathering there, getting ready to water the sheep. Of course, they closed off the well for security, and they also closed it off to keep contaminants from falling in and keeping the water from evaporating. So he came to this well. And he asked about Laban. Laban, is a relative of Rebecca, Rebecca's brother, I believe. And Yaakov said to them, brothers, relatives, who are you? We are from Haran, of course. And he noticed a beautiful young lady, about 16 years old, Rachel. Yeah, immediately. And knew that she had beautiful eyes, probably had a beautiful figure or whatever. And she was a shepherdess. Yeah, she was tasked for shepherding sheep and watering them and taking them to grassy fields and feeding them and things of that nature. So he started immediately becoming interested in that. And as a gentleman, Yaakov, he moved that big heavy stone away for her because he knew that's what they did. He probably saw the stone move back and forth with other shepherds there. He was studying it, analyzing what was going on. He went there to find a wife. Much like his father did, of Yitzhak did when he found Rebekah. The same kind of process there. But Yaakov came up there with his camels and his people. I'm not sure how many servants he had with him. It wasn't a large, magnificent party like Eleazar had when he was looking for a wife for Yitzhak. But moving forward, he discovered that this was Laban's daughter, Rachel. So he kissed her. I don't think this was a passionate kiss per se of anything, but he kissed her, and that he couldn't resist because he knew that she was so cute and beautiful. He probably felt in his soul, this is my Sharon, this is my soulmate. This is someone I need to be with. This is why I came here. So he probably kissed her hand, or maybe on the cheek or something like that, just to signify that you were special. Of course, she was thrilled with that. Yeah, love at first sight, like my wife and I. And Jacob told Rachel that he was his father's relative, and they were all cousins, and that he was Rebekah's son. So then she, when he started using these names like Rebekah, of course, he immediately knew who Rebekah was. So she ran very excited to her father Laban. So when it was, Laban heard the news of Jacob and his sister's son, and he ran toward him and embraced him and kissed him and took him to his house and recounted to Laban all the events that led him to there and why he was coming there to run in the first place. Now, Laban was an interesting fellow. He was a little bit very much in himself, selfish, narcissistic. He was a polytheistic. He was a supernaturalist, spiritualist. He was in divination. He did not really believe. He knew about Abraham's God, but he probably equivocated Abraham's God with multiple gods of that area there that they worship. So Laban, first of all, noticed, there's no gold and silver here, and you're interested in my daughter, a marriage, and you're engaged. You want an engagement with her, but you have no gold to pay, and how am I gonna justify this? He was a businessman, okay, just a businessman, and he noticed that, to give someone's daughter, even to a relative, may have been a blessed thing, but everything had a price, and even his daughter had a worth or something of value. So many sheep, flocks of sheep, gold or silver, whatever. Unlike Eleazar, he didn't have any money to pay for the daughter as a tribute. So it was all about the business plan of Laban. So moving forward here, so Laban gathered all the people and had a big feast and celebration for Rachel. And of course, immediately Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel, and that was the initial plan. So you can imagine it's very festive in the Jewish world when you get married. It's a very joyful time. A beauty queen per se was not. So there's a lot of dialogue moving into chapter 30 here. The devious business dealings of Laban and Yaakov, and mothers, and you don't have IVF, and you don't have all these other scientific medical miracles that we take for granted today. You had maidservants, you had concubines be able to take the place of your wife if she could not bear your son. So that's what essentially happened. So Yaakov had to be there 14 years to get both holy Kala brides. Yeah. So that's why he was married twice and had children with Leah. Later, he had a son finally with Rachel, after Rachel gave a concubine to Yaakov on her behalf because she felt that her womb was barren. Well, God finally opened her womb after 14 years had passed, and she had Joseph. Yeah, if you remember Joseph in Egypt, and we're going to be getting that story before you know it. So Judah was born of Leah, of great renown, and Joseph was born of Rachel. There are other names and tribal names. Again, Yaakov was the last patriarch, so he actually had the 12 sons, actually 14 sons, if you think about all the others and everything else, and I will explain the math later on. Not important, not germane to this discussion tonight. But moving forward here, we're coming to verse 18. It says, when Yaakov came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, it is to me that you must come, for I have clearly hired you with my sons. So he lay with her that night. So Leah was eager to have more children. So since Rachel gave a maidservant, and it was competition here, to Yaakov initially to have Dan and Naphtali, I believe, Leah wanted to do the same thing because she wanted to please her husband. She thought that Yaakov wanted to have as many children as possible because having all these sons was a sign of wealth. They had daughters too, Dinah, for instance. Just a moment, moving forward. I mentioned before that Laban was spiritually, okay? And he said he heard from his God, Hashem, and he said, your God, through divination, that you are blessing my flock, my herd. You're putting money in my coffers because you're with me. You're like my rabbit's foot, and I want to keep you around longer. So please stay with me longer, and you'll get more sheep out of the deal. So he's already been there 14 years. He was actually in Haran for 20 years. Rebecca never intended to let go of Yaakov that long. 20 years, wow. So he's having a bunch of children and becoming very wealthy. And since I grew up around a farm, this is kind of interesting when they talk about sheep, different type of sheep, spotted, speckled, different colors, larger sheep, smaller sheep, sheep with better genetics, essentially better weight, better coats on them. So what do you do when Laban had a huge herd, Yaakov had a huge herd, and you had limited real estate in which for them to feed their flocks and water and everything else? How do you keep track of those sheep, even if you have hired shepherds to watch them? Sometimes sheep cross a fence across in one area and go to another area, and then you accuse someone of theft and all of this. It happened all the time back then. So Yaakov had an idea about using poles and wrapping markers around them against one set of flock, and said, I will have this type of sheep here, with a spotted and colored or different color scheme. You have the other color scheme or different characteristics that set these sheep apart. This was good for having a strong flock, for grading the flock, because this is where all the money and wealth during this time came from, is from large flocks of sheep and goats, and at that time brought a lot of money to the market back then. That's how they made their living. So in chapter 1, Yaakov overheard a discussion that Laban he was talking to his father, he was talking to his people. He said, hey, Yaakov's flock is really huge, and his flock is growing faster than mine, and he just got here, and we've been here forever, it seems like. And I believe he's taken all of my father's sheep away. That was not true, but Yaakov heard this, and he began concerned because of the deviousness of Laban, because he changes Yaakov's wages 100 times, is what it says here. changed the contract, changed the agreement, changed the daughters, deceit, and wanted to keep them there longer, because he knew he was an excellent shepherd. He brought wealth to his family. But so what did Yaakov do? Well, God spoke to him. He said, it's time for you to go back home to Beersheba. Okay? So he told his wives what would happen and what was going on. And he left quickly while Laban was busy doing other things. In fact, Laban didn't find out that Yaakov was actually split out of Haran and left about 3 days later. Rachel did something interesting. She took some of the gods, statuines or whatever, probably gold or something precious, out of Laban's house and put them in the bags along the camels that Yaakov was managing and transporting all his goods and all his household, all his children. So when Joseph was after his Brit, whatever, he's old enough, recovered from the circumcision, that's when they left Haran back to Beersheba. Well, Laban heard about what happened. He was angry, and he brought his people. Maybe he brought some military people as well to be able to get back what he thought was stolen from him. Okay? Don't think there was goodwill with Laban, and he respected relatives and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, if it didn't further him and elevate him before his people, his own self-importance, it didn't matter anything to him. So Laban, his people overtook Yaakov around Mount Gilead. So he came to the point where he overtook Yaakov. Yaakov's probably set tents and was resting in a certain area there around Mount Gilead. So Laban came in and he said, you even took my gods. No one messes with my gods. So he started breaking in to Yaakov's property and tents, and probably opening boxes and opening bags and looking in Leah's tent, looking in Rachel's tent. But Rachel was smart enough. She took the statuines and put them in the packs that was over Laban's camels and put them back. Why did she take these gods in the first place when she respected the one true God of Yaakov? Well, sages go back and forth for this. Some of them say that she took these gods because she didn't want her father to worship them. Another reason is because they left so quickly that she didn't have a chance to say goodbye to her father. And maybe she felt guilty about that, and she knew that her father would come after the gods because they're the most precious things in his household. He probably burnt little candles around them or whatever and said prayers. But anyway, she put the statues back, and Laban later found them. But what's interesting here, when Laban overtook Yaakov around Mount Gilead, during that time, Hashem visited Laban in a dream. Yes. He says, don't speak ill will or don't speak anything bad about Yaakov. He's my servant. Don't touch him. Don't do anything wrong to him. I'm warning you. Don't mess with Yaakov. So it's very interesting. So Laban had that in his mind, and I'm not sure if he told Yaakov immediately. But anyway, after Laban cooled down and they ate something and met together, and he saw his grandkids, all that family that was spoken, everything else. Maybe gave him a couple tears, crocodile tears or whatever. So they made a covenant, made an agreement there about this, let bygones be bygones. So Rachel and Leah kissed their father goodbye, and then Laban kissed his grandchildren goodbye, and they all shook hands and made up with that, okay? Now, this is in Mount Gilead, and, Esau was still out doing what Esau loves best, hunting game and trying to find out where his brother was. Moving forward here and wrapping this up, I promise you, getting close to chapter 32. Like every legal contract during that time, there always If there were a lot of rocks there, they built pillars to have that contract. You had burnt offerings too. So that's what they did in Galilee, I believe in that area. It says, may Hashem keep watch. May Hashem keep watch between you and me, and until we are out of each other's sight. And he said, let there be no ill will between us. I think maybe Laban wised up a little bit. I don't know. I think he had the Hashem effect upon him, and warnings there. So Yaakov celebrated all of this because, he prayed that God would be with him, support him, just to give him a better sustenance to survive, because he did not go with a lot of gold and silver, a lot of things like that. Because remember, he left very quickly for fear of his life, because Rebecca told him to get out of town. But he had a big feast there. I mean, he had a big family. Had 2 wives, had concubines that gave them sons and daughters as well. So they broke bread and spent the night on the mountain there. So finishing up in chapter 32, we have, and Laban woke up early in the morning and he kissed everyone goodbye and he left. And Yaakov declared that this place was a holy camp, that there were angels. He met angels on the way. I don't know what that exactly meant, that he actually saw angels, or every night he had dreams of angels, that they had visions of angels, that there are angels there. So it's interesting that angels are earthbound for specific purpose and guarding and protecting God's chosen. But also there are angels encamped in heaven with duties as well. Remember Jacob's ladder, angels going up and going down. The long Parshah, thank you for being with me. This is a really great story about love. It's a story about sibling rivalry, rivalry between Yaakov and Esau, rivalry between Rachel and Leah, and the deviousness of the father-in-law in the middle, making everything more complicated than it has to be. There's a lot of lessons from this about God's promises, the importance of praying. I cannot emphasize enough of praying and putting your heart right. When you pray, you may think to yourself, God, gimme, but it's not about that. Yaakov was unique in that he prayed for God's glory to elevate him, from the earth to heaven, hence the ladder going to Shamayim, and Hashem presenting his beautiful, wonderful, delicious present before Yaakov. So, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you have a good weekend wherever you call home. I hope it's a blessing for you. I hope if your children have colds or your grandchildren are sick, I hope they are healed. Refuah Shalima for anyone that's seeing this video. If you're sick, if you're in a hospital, if you're waiting on a doctor treatment and an insurance claim has been denied, I pray all that difficulties to go away, that God will bless you and keep you from harm. May He shine His face upon you and comfort you in the night hours. Please be good to your fellow man. Remember, charity is the greatest way to have your sins atoned for. I can't emphasize that enough. More than burnt offerings, more than temple sacrifices, God desires a cheerful heart in giving to those who are less fortunate than you. Take care, Shalom Aleichem, and I'll see you again for the next Parsha.